as well.
All right. So again, this is Juan with AccessUserGroups.org. This is the Microsoft Access SQL Server meeting. Today we have a very special guest Ebo Quansah, and he is the Access Product Manager. And I'm going to ask everyone to mute yourself. And at the end of the presentation, we'll have a Q&A session. Plus, I got some exciting news to share with you guys, in addition to any news that Ebo is going to share with us as well. And if you need any help with the video or hearing or anything else, please leave us a message in the chat. Plus, any questions you may have, you can also leave in the chat, and we'll address those at the end. Take it away, Ebo.
Thank you so much, Juan, and thank you for having me here. Give me 1 second as I try to configure something really quickly.
I just want to give a little background information while we're waiting for your PowerPoint. Ebo took over from Mikhail, who was the prior project manager, and he had some big shoes to fill, and I'm happy to say and report back that he's really done an amazing job, not just with the product itself, but also with communications with the community. He has regularly participated in Access User Group meetings, as well as conferences around the world before COVID, and we're really happy to have him tonight.
Likewise. So can you see, what are you looking at right now?
It says, hello, good afternoon, evening, or morning to everyone in the call.
1 sec. That's
You're sharing the wrong one, I think.
Yeah, I think so too, which is fine. But let me do something else really quick then. Yeah, usually I guess I'm so used to Teams that now this is an experience, but this is a great experience. And I'm learning on the way. So let's try this.
We have 20 people on the call. Everyone, welcome. We just started. You haven't missed anything.
Great. Are you looking at the full screen now?
Now we're seeing it. Very good. Thank you.
Awesome. And thank you. And thank you again, Juan. Thank you to everybody for also being here. I'm super excited to be with you all today. I actually don't think I've had the chance to talk directly with this group specifically before. So I'm really excited to have that opportunity right now. I definitely hope everyone is staying safe, and sorry that times are not yet right for me to present to you all in person, but hopefully that time will come very soon. So with that, I'll continue to start off my sessions, by saying thank you again. And I cannot emphasize this enough every time I'm able to talk to you, because I see the comments and feedback that active customers like you bring to the table. We live and breathe on the opportunity areas and success of our customers in order to drive ourselves forward. It might seem intriguing to think that Access, an almost 29-year-old product now, is still so important to Microsoft, but it truly is. And on top of that, I've been able to complete almost 2 years of managing a product that's also very important to me. So we really appreciate all of you for helping us make this product effective and letting it be known that your success is directly proportional to ours. And with that, please keep telling us what we at Microsoft can do to drive it to the next level. And I'll be saving some extra time towards the end of the session to hear more of your questions and thoughts. On today's agenda, because we strictly abide by the one Microsoft theme and are very unified in the way that we work, I do think it's important to remind everyone of what our mission means at Microsoft today, as that has been constantly evolving over the years. And then from there, I'll jump immediately into Access, discussing its relevance to the mission as well as priorities. And then I'll cover what's new in the product, as we definitely have some great news to share. And then I'll finally reveal some pretty important news in the Access roadmap, including how we want to better support product reliability, as we have heard your feedback and want to do more to improve on this front, before talking a little bit more about our heavily increased focus to better integrate Access with Microsoft's Power Platform. And then, of course, as always, I'll leave some time for community engagement and some questions. Okay, so our mission, to empower every person and organization on the planet to achieve more. That's essentially the North Star in everything that we do, with every Access choice that we make, and how we show up and communicate with our customers. And when we talk about empowering people, we simply mean that with the right tools in Access, any of you can achieve your biggest goals worldwide. And a culture founded in growth mindset is what's most important to the team and to our customers. Obsessing over what matters to you, becoming more diverse and inclusive in everything that we do and create, and operating as kind of one singular company. That is what we do to make a difference to the lives across the world. All of these dialogues, that we are consistently reminded of at Microsoft today is something that we'll continue to hear. And I definitely have a strong opinion that this applies to Access especially. So, what's the vision of Access? What are our priorities and where are we going? Our high-level priorities this year are relatively similar on a high level to the past year, with a heavier emphasis on cloud and mobile connectivity for 2021. But as always, I think the first and foremost priority is focused on customer satisfaction and will always continue to be. And that includes making sure that the product is stable and reliable, which I'll spend quite a bit of time talking about later on, and continuing to develop new features where applicable. This also includes us responding to the feedback that you send, whether that's on user voice, on various distribution lists, or through the words of your Access community leaders. All of that is important for us to assess how satisfied our customers truly are and in what areas we can do a better job. Our second priority, which again is critical to our business and focuses on cloud connectivity, where especially after the retirement of web apps, getting your Access data and then apps into the cloud, as well as the phone and tablet, is incredibly important. We do understand that not having this capability causes a ton of frustration, as well as concern with the long-standing use of the product. So we as a team are dedicating a ton of discussions and time to better integrate Access with other Microsoft products to then help light up these current gaps that you're experiencing. And then the final piece is community, where of course being present at events like today, staying engaged online through forums like the tech community page and through blog posts, and offering a huge number of resources and help content through our support and docs.microsoft pages are all important to us to help you successfully navigate through Access in a really effective way. So if you do have any questions or thoughts on our top priorities, I am happy to discuss this at the end of the session. But for now, I'll go into how these priorities trickle down to our actual work. Okay. So what's really going on in Access? Some of these you may already be familiar with and others not so much. If you haven't tried this feature out yet, please do. Some of you, again, may already know about what this is, but for those who don't, we in Access want to continue making a heavy investment into having a strong experience between Access as a desktop app and SQL, whether that's SQL Server or SQL Azure. And so to really better your syntax compatibility and integration with SQL, while also making sure that we're increasing the accuracy of records with dates and times, we decided to build a new date-time extended data type into Access. And this investment also aligns quite nicely with our broader goal of building Access apps on top of data that can then be stored in the cloud. So as you may already guess, this feature is quite equivalent to SQL datetime2's data type, but with a more user-intuitive name in Access. And with this type, we'll support 3 components, and those include remote table support, where you can link data with this type from remote SQL tables, local table support, where you can use the type in your Access databases, and our new and improved expression support, where you can perform different calculations on the type, for example, though that comes with certain limitations that I'll cover in the next slide. But all in all, this is a huge investment for us as we continue to push on integration plans with SQL, and developing a new type that can be readily used from Access to and from SQL will definitely help drive this goal. A couple of quick things to note here, though, is that our current date-time data type will continue to operate as is, and we will not be removing it. So the choice of either using date-time versus date-time extended is fully yours. If you do want a larger range of data, more precision in your times, or if you're an avid SQL user, date-time extended specifically is definitely the right data type for you. And then, by the way, when you are linking to SQL, keep in mind that this supports SQL version 2016 and later. And when you're using the ODBC driver to connect, just know that this requires the driver for SQL Server version 11 or after. So regarding expressions on this feature, though, you will successfully be able to use a strong number of those on the new type, including all expressions that work for our previous date and time data type. And for our more advanced developers, you can even leverage SQL aggregate functions and expressions. But as of today, for reasons that are currently outside of my team's specific control, being able to perform calculations on the data type in VBA code will unfortunately be limited. You can absolutely still use the data type in VBA, but as of now, it will have to be called as a string, meaning that calculations on the type specifically in VBA code only will not be supported in our first pass of this feature. So we know that this is frustrating. We're a bit frustrated too, but this is unfortunately because of some limitations outside the scope of my specific team regarding proper support. That being said, though, we are absolutely still planning to make calculations on the type within VBA code possible in the foreseeable future. So please stay tuned for that because that change will be coming soon. I just want to talk about this one a little bit again, as I've still been getting some questions on this feature that we rolled out last year and made some changes to into this year. And any continuous maintenance improvements on this will be made as well. So if there are any bugs that you discover or things that seem to not be working well regarding this feature, please send feedback into the product. So what is this? As you know, you have needed to install the ACE redistributable engine to expose ACE outside of the Office ecosystem. But now with Microsoft 365 or click-to-run versions of Access 2016 or 2019 Consumer installed, you will no longer need to install the Redis to use our OLEDB provider. And what that does is that helps with connecting access to tools like Power BI and custom apps. This also applies to using our DAO interface, and that stands for Data Access Object. And what that means is you'll no longer need to complete an MSI installer package to use SQL Server Migration Assistant, aka SSMA. And the great news is that both of these are really great and effective and very live today. And then finally, for ODBC, you'll no longer need to build data source names to retrieve ACE data within an Office app, which is also something that we have exposed recently. So with that being said, again, all of this is available now. We have made some iterations, but they're good to go. And this work is important to call out given that 2016 will be the last version of the ACE Redis engine. And because of that, we want to alleviate the requirement of needing the Redis as much as possible. So the three interfaces I mentioned here is what we have started with. And this work that was specifically done by the Access team is an Office-wide achievement. So I'm super happy to share that news with everyone today. I know that's a good amount of information. Again, if you do have questions on this, or if you continue to run into problems, please send in a product help message or use your voice request, and I'll be more than happy to assist as long as with team, as well as the team, excuse me. But that's not all to call out from the past. While you may have already heard of some of these, we have continued to make improvements to them and finalize this work earlier last year, including modernized tabs, which is a huge visual and user-friendly enhancement, and our Office-wide account manager update, which basically shows your M365 work and personal accounts in one place, and actually lets you switch between them quite easily. And then finally, just to recap on zooming, you are still able to zoom for more room by typing Shift F2 within a record, where you can then adjust the font size, the font type, and the style in each individual cell. So again, just some great stuff that we want to ensure your awareness of for your own developments, as well as your interaction with other clients. So please continue to use them as you can count on them. Now, into coming soon. So unfortunately, there were a number of features that we were planning to ship much more recently, but those features needed to be pushed back a little bit due to our increasing shift in prioritizing your product integration requests. So that is all to say that the next few items that I'm going to show you are still incredibly important to us, and we want to get them done soon. But with our plan to partner with the Power Platform org, which again, you'll hear more about in a little while, we had to adjust our timeline just a little bit. And with all that being said, we will still plan to have a new modern web browser control later this year. Because after hearing all of your feedback and understanding, the use case behind the feature, the team really has decided to build a new web browser control, and we're super excited about it. And where does this stem from? Besides your great insight, well, our current web browser control only works for older web browsers, meaning that the rendering technology that our control hosting defaults to is Internet Explorer version 7. So we knew it was definitely time for a change. Plus, Edge continues to be invested upon more and more heavily, and it has been made clear that Chromium Edge is currently Microsoft's key browser focus. So with all of that, we decided that developing this new control is definitely an impactful strategy. Just to give a little bit of detail, this control will appear as a new icon in the ribbon, and will also be called the Edge browser control. The browser version and the control will be set to Chromium Edge, which means that you'll need to have the right browser on your desktop in order to use this new control. But the good news is, starting mid-October, which is close to the time that we'll roll out this feature, the new Chromium Edge browser on your computers will automatically install. So this is something that we had originally thought about from last year, but that will happen definitely towards the end of this year, that mid-October frame. So you should not need to do anything extra to be able to use this control if you're on an updated version, which is exciting news. But to be clear, we're not doing anything to our existing control for Internet Explorer. This control will still be kept as is, and you'll still be able to use it. And if you already have an existing control in your database, you can modernize it through a quick right-click option and also switch back to our older version if you'd like. So again, super happy to get this into your hands soon and happy to hear thoughts and questions on this once we get to the end of the press. I know I mentioned a little bit of October. There is definitely a chance that we can get to this much sooner, so stay tuned and we're hoping to get it into your hands soon. Okay, another item that we will also be enabling this year is enabling 32-bit access to address 4 gigs of memory. In other words, making access large address aware. And this is especially useful when you have lots of data or you're performing several actions in a single app. For example, creating several complex forms, you're batch exporting reports as PDF and more. So we're also super excited to bring that to life in the coming months. Again, cross-platform usability has been a key access objective for the past several years and will continue to be going forward. SQL is no exception to this because we hear about your experience with SQL and we want to do the best that we can to truly improve that. So with that, we know that the SQL editor in Access provides a number of limitations that slows down your productivity levels. So that is the key area that we want to improve. And so with that, some of you might already be familiar with the Monaco Editor, but our plan is to embed this into Access. And with this Monaco Editor, additional tools like the ability to format SQL code, whether that's bolding, italicizing, etc., or syntax highlighting, and also expanding our indentation limit as well as IntelliSense, are actually all items that will come with this Monaco Editor being embedded into Access. So I'm actually super excited about this one. I hope you are too, as we still project that to happen towards later this year. But for now, that's the extent of information that I can provide about the Monaco Editor embedding at this point. And as we progress into the summer, I'll be able to definitely give you more detail on it. So hold any very specific questions on this for a few months from now as we continue to still scope through this plan. And just to go on a kind of a quick detour, speaking of our continuous focus on SQL, I just want to hit this home. I've already talked about date time extended being outdoor. We also shipped our round 1 of query improvements last year, which included, again, find and replace dialog in SQL View. We had mouse wheel scroll and relationship window in SQL View. We also allowed folks to right-click a table to design and size it in addition to opening it. Auto-size tables, multiple table select and relationships window, and the list goes on. We actually even have more improvements coming soon because that was for round 1 and we'll be having round 2, which will include automatic table layout, a stronger graphical designer, and more. And then on top of that, we'll still have the Monaco Editor embedded. So improvements to the feature of SQL in Access, as well as improvements to maintaining the SQL experience without major problems discovered in the tool is super important for us. And so I want to definitely push on the SQL integration experience. And I feel like with all of our hands on deck, we'll be able to make that super successful for you all as well. So stay tuned. And before we go into the roadmap, one thing I want to make very clear is that accessibility is a huge deal for us at Microsoft and for Access, as you've seen in some of our improvements above, but we still have a ton of work to do. Our goal is far from being reached, and we are doing our best to meet the needs of our customers in all regions across the globe. So please keep your feedback on this coming as well, as we want to make sure that the product is as accessible, and user-friendly as possible. And we'll devote all of the appropriate time and efforts that we need to help bridge any gaps for that. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about what's coming soon, but I'd like to dive a bit deeper into what's top of mind for us and what's in our feature backlog moving forward. And the first thing is something that I've talked a little bit about before, but I want to bring this up again and nail it home. A huge part of our mission has been strongly catered towards successfully maintaining the product as it stands today. we are fully aware of our bugs and recent regressions that we understand impact your tools, especially your businesses as well. So with that, a successful and seamless user experience is our absolute top priority. And just for some clarity on this, there are times where large regressions may not have even been specifically caused by the Access team, but can be impacted by changes that have happened in the Office all-up ecosystem or in Windows. But in any case, once we do receive notifications from any customers about product regressions, my team investigates these issues right away. And for just a little bit more insight without providing too much internal context, when we make the appropriate security fixes in certain versions of Access, those changes can unfortunately result in additional regressions or bugs depending on the version that you are on. And so especially if you're on an older Office channel like Access for Office 2000 or 2003, with that there is a chance that our older tools that drive some older builds may not properly address and fix issues in those versions of Access, which is why we push so much to get folks onto more updated Access versions. And that said, while of course new features and more up-to-date changes can also come with new problems, of course, we are able to use our most up-to-date tools to better anticipate and then subsequently resolve those problems from badly impacting your system. So while I unfortunately cannot provide any specific context on the internal improvements to our systems that we're making to enhance the user experience, we are focusing a lot more on anticipating and more efficiently tackling potential problems that may arise in the tool before it even gets to your hands. And we also plan to do a better job to provide more clarity and updates into what we're fixing, especially to prevent you from feeling left out in the dark. So if you do have kind of suggestions on how you can be more aware of kind of how we're addressing bugs, I would love to hear them because we're working through that right now. But in any case, we really do get it because the last thing that we want is for you to not be able to accomplish the work that you were supposed to do throughout a day, a week, or even months. We totally understand how frustrating that may feel. And with the improved work that we have spanned for the next few months, we are quite confident that your apps will be better protected and you will encounter fewer problems moving forward. Okay, so back to future work. I now want to shift a little into talking about our upcoming integration strategy that will be a large team focus in the near future. So what is this integration? Why is this an investment for us, and why the Microsoft Power Platform? I think we're quite clear that Access has been Microsoft's original and key product to help our customers organize, to track and manage information, while then leveraging that data to build mission-critical apps. But among Access's success, the company has also brainstormed ways to help solve business needs that originally seemed a bit separate from the goals of Access, and tools in the Power Platform like Power Apps and Dataverse are examples of this. But now, as we as a company push more and more towards the One Microsoft strategy, which I've talked about earlier, we want to integrate some of those various business needs together and bridge existing gaps instead of having to point you towards several different directions each time you have a distinct strategy and or end goal, which takes us into the following objective that you see on this slide. So we still understand that the ability to get your managed data and apps into a shareable format in the cloud and phone is important. And as you know, Access Web Apps did not perform as originally anticipated. So we did decide that it's better to create a more integrated experience for the products that, although clearly don't have the similar experiences as Access, can at least help bridge gaps that Access faces today. So we want to provide a platform for you to continue doing what you're doing today, but when you would like to get your data and apps into a shareable platform, have that information shared across various devices like the computer, tablet, mobile phone, etc., we'll definitely have an avenue for you to do just that, which starts in the Access product. So how do we want to achieve this? We want to integrate Access with Dataverse, which was previously known as the Common Data Service, and I'll define that in the next slide, by building what's known as a Dataverse connector. Again, I'll explain what Dataverse and that whole system means in a bit, but basically this connector will be built within the Access app and will allow you to export your Access data to the service, but also immediately create link tables on the data you just moved if you so choose. So once your data has been exported to Dataverse, if you decide to allow us to immediately create link tables for you, you can continue working in Access the entire time And any edits that you make to your linked access tables will then appear in Dataverse. So that definitely, I hope, saves you some time there. And then that way, there's no need to have to be an expert in Dataverse to make changes to your moved data. It's actually visible right in front of your fingertips in Access. And then from there, we will want to light up the opportunity for you to be able to build a Power App directly from your data, which has now just been exported to Dataverse. Okay, so at this point, I expect you to be like, Ebo, what on earth are you talking about? What are these products? Totally fair. Power Apps and Dataverse fall under the Power Platform division of Microsoft. Power Apps, also known as Power Applications, is basically a tool to build custom business applications without much knowledge of app development or coding. But the key thing to call out is that these kind of custom applications can be deployed and shared right over the cloud or even on your phone. And because of what this tool offers and what Access offers today, both the Access and Power Platform teams have agreed to work more closely together to provide a more integrated One Microsoft experience to our customers. But to be clear, though, there are a significant number of capabilities that Access provides and that Power Apps does not, and of course, vice versa. And that is why Access is still, again, successful as a separate product, and there's absolutely no planned replacement of any sort. Now, Dataverse is the Power Platform's underlying storage unit, previously known as CDS or the Common Data Service. It's basically a secure platform that's hosted on the cloud, which opens up a realm of opportunities for us as Access users. And so with that, connecting to Dataverse is currently Access's key investment focus right now, as data in Dataverse can be consumed and then shared across various devices. And you can also use this data to create a Power App if you'd like to do so. It's also very rapidly evolving. This business continues to move very quick. So once we integrate and create this new integration experience, you'll also be able to see a wide range of new experiences that the Power Platform provides over time. So again, as briefly discussed a few slides ago, there are a number of requests that we have received from you over the past years and even close to a decade now on data storage in the cloud, cross-platform consumption, sharing, and editing apps online, and more. This is a step on how we're meeting your requests. And we are quite confident that this product integration will definitely help fulfill them. We want to make sure that you continue having your apps consumed over the desktop with Access as a standalone app today. But we also want to provide another avenue for you to get those apps and get that data online and shareable across a computer, tablet, or mobile phone, as I've been saying. But in addition to that, we want to make this simple by providing this opportunity through low to almost no code. The last thing that we want to do is release a new opportunity for you all and have it being complex. And so that's why we're aiming to be very careful and cautious with this integration project and ensure that what you're asking for is properly met, and we're focusing on all of the detail. And then finally, as a mobile app, Power Apps can run on various platforms such as the Android, the iOS, and Windows, and with almost any internet browser. So upon building the in-app experience for you to connect to Dataverse, you can easily project your data from Dataverse into Power Apps, excuse me. And so this experience that you're seeing right now, it'll definitely be much different, but I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of a flavor. So the first thing, if you haven't used Power Apps before or you're not familiar, I'll definitely direct you to some helpful sources that you can learn. But what you'll need to do is that you'll need to make sure that an environment is created in the Power Platform Center. And once you have created that new environment, you can then add a new database. From there, once you've completed all that, you can then move your Access data to the Dataverse environment. From here, you're going to be able to see that there's a number of URLs that will show you kind of, okay, given that you are trying to move your data to Dataverse, where can you actually move your data to? And so we'll have that list populated for you based on user authentication. And then finally, from there, we'll again ask if you'd like us to create link tables for your migrated data so that you can continue to work on that data in Access and you don't necessarily have to leave. But once you are ready to leave, that then takes me to that bottom left image there where you're now in Dataverse. And so this is how it is originally looking. You can see that there's a number of tabs where you can manage your data a bit differently, but we'll automatically take you to the data tab so you can see all of that very crystally and clearly. And then from there, once you're ready to create a Power App, if you would like to create a Power App, the steps are quite simple. And again, I'll dive deeper into that at a later time. But for now, you'll be able to create a Power App quite simply from your Dataverse data once it's there. Okay, so I want to just give a quick example scenario of how this can be used in an everyday instance. So let's just give this example. It's a Monday morning and Susan's on her way to the hospital. However, on her way, she needs to understand COVID supply inventory to know whether or not to order more supplies before she gets to the hospital. That data is stored in an Access database, and that image might look a little familiar for some of you, but Susan does not have her laptop on her nor does she have Wi-Fi. But because Susan has her phone on her, if she is able to access and read the inventory management data from her phone, she'll know how much more material she needs to pick up in order before she arrives. And that's when Denise comes to the rescue, because Denise here is able to actually move, link, and upload the AccessMate COVID-19 database into a Power App to then share that database with Susan over the phone. And now Susan can get onto her Power Apps app on her iOS phone, for example, see how many ventilators exist in each tent, and then place a rush order before she gets to work. So that's kind of one of the several examples of the scenario that we plan to solve in Access, and that list will continue to grow. Now back to the product. Just to show kind of one more very high-level example of how to navigate this while you're in the app itself, you'd first start by creating a new Access database or leveraging an existing one. And then we'll have 2 entry points for you to access the Dataverse icon. Again, pardon the drawing here because that'll change, of course. But one will be through the Ribbon UI within the External Data tab. And there you can select as many tables as you'd like to export into Dataverse. Or you can actually select the tables themselves and right-click in the tab to export. So what we're also super excited about is that in both scenarios, you'll be taken to the Dataverse wizard where you can perform a number of actions, and we'll do that for you. One of them is exporting all of your related tables. We'll also be able to automatically link your tables into Access again, like I talked about once you've exported. We're actually implementing what's known as a data validator, where we'll check if all the data you're planning to export is actually supported in Dataverse. And if it's not, what specifically that data is, so that it'll be easy for you to make changes to that data and re-export again. And with that, we'll actually have data that's not supported stored in that separate table for you so that you don't need to worry about getting into Dataverse and seeing a bunch of errors there. And then finally, we'll be able to automatically open the specific Dataverse website once you're done exporting. So once your data is quickly there, we'll actually just auto-launch the URL for you so that you don't even have to do anything else to see your data right away. So I can't exactly show now what that looks like just yet, but just know that it'll provide a much more user-friendly and up-to-date experience than ever before. So I'm definitely super excited to bring that to the table once it's live. And then again, with those linked tables, whether you allow for us to create them automatically or you decide to create linked tables later, you'll be able to continue reviewing or editing your exported data through the commonly known linked table experience. And then finally, of course, you can then navigate to Dataverse, review your data online, and then create a Power App. Again, are we trying to replace Access? Absolutely not. But when you'd like to share your information and have that information shared with others over the web and or the phone, you can connect your Access records to Dataverse and build Power Apps to make that happen. And we will also have you maintain your Access experience, meaning that as mentioned, after data has been moved over, you can continue working on that same data and Access with the linked tables that I kept honing in on. But just to be clear, this does not shy away from our SQL experience and our consistently high priority goal to enhance your experience with SQL as well, as I've already talked about. We know there is work to do on that front, and SQL has and will continue to be very important to all of us. SQL is one platform that we want to grow the Access collaboration experience with substantially, and then the Power Platform is another separate avenue. And then finally, is the end goal limited to Power Apps? Since I've mentioned that a lot today, it's actually not. Integrating data into Dataverse can light up a variety of opportunities in the Power Platform beyond just Power Apps, like using that migrated data to create apps in Power BI. You can automate processes with it, establish virtual agents, and so much more. Because what Dataverse is, it's a backend tool for most of the front-end facing tools in the platform. So once that data is there, a lot of opportunities rise up for you. But for now, we will scope things down in our first pass, and our current focus will be on a successful data integration experience with Dataverse, and then seamlessly enabling you to very nicely build a Power App from there. Okay, so that's the news on our Dataverse and Power Platform integration, and you'll be hearing a lot more about this as we get closer to release later in the year. But even with all of that, we still have some more work coming. We want to still modernize and improve our user experience and UI capabilities, both in-house and through stronger integration with other products as well. And with that, the Graph Connector is still in our pipeline, and we're getting closer and closer to having that reach our desired goal. I know that you all have been hearing this for some time, but I do promise that it is coming soon. And then from there, we still like to continue making improvements to our existing tools, like modernizing and implementing new controls, making improvements to our modern charts, which is still in the pipeline, and making improvements to our query experience as well as our linked table manager, especially as linked tables become more popular moving forward. So a lot of these are items in the pipeline, and these are based off of what we hear from you and your feedback through user voice, through the tool, through our distribution groups, and so much more. So we really take your insights seriously, and we have been happy to bring some of these suggestions to life. That said, if there is any feedback about these or other items that you find more or less important, please include those on our respective channels, and we'd be happy to take them in consideration. And as always, times are rapidly evolving and changing, so please stay tuned on updates to this work. This will require a lengthy amount of time to be successful, especially the Power Platform work. So I'll make sure to follow up with you as we learn more about our concrete timelines. That said, if you have any initial thoughts or feedback, you are more than welcome to submit them onto our user voice channel or to the in-product feedback. But in the interim, I advise you to do some great research on Dataverse and its offerings, as well as Power Apps. Okay, so a couple things that I want to mention before we close out today. One last clarification thing on here. This is something that you might have heard me talk about last year already if you've seen some of my other sessions, but I still see some questions and thoughts about not being able to see some of our most recent features. So I think it's just best to quickly review how Office is delivered and discuss an important update to our ecosystem. So first, as of last year, our official branding of Microsoft Productivity Suite has changed from Office 365 to Microsoft 365, aka M365. And this strongly reflects our strategy of providing a kind of single, complete productivity platform for all of our customers. And if you want to learn more about this, please visit Microsoft.com/Microsoft365 to hear more about the broader Office and M365 strategy. So that being said, everything that we ship for M365, which is subscription-based, is updated on a more regular cadence, whether that's monthly or there are certain instances as an enterprise customer where you can opt for less frequent or semi-annual updates as well. So in the subscription case on the left, any recent investments and changes that we make within M365 will very quickly reflect into your systems, including the ones that I've already talked about today. Versus on the right, this kind of license is effective when time comes to ship a new perpetual version like we did for Access 2019, where we kind of just bundle everything together, we ship it, and sell that new version as a perpetual license. That being said, there will be an Access 2022, so that new perpetual version will be coming next year, and stay tuned for that. Okay, so just to close on a couple brief updates from the community, and then we'll get right into questions. One of the most important missions of Access for me as a product manager is to ensure that the voices of our customers are being heard and that they are aware of the many developments and improvements that we are making in the product. And this is through providing you all with the opportunity to submit feedback into tools like User Voice for us to then respond to, or publishing updates and new cool things into our Access blog, getting you involved in our support forum, in our tech community, and of course, developing stronger customer connections with you all through being involved in various visits, interviews, user group sessions, and Access conferences like today. So the Access team has had an awesome opportunity to participate and even occasionally help organize a variety of community-driven events, and we aim to continue to host more events in our platform going forward. And as always, please continue to provide us your feedback, given that, as you know, there are several ways to submit feedback on the product, as I mentioned, again, whether that's on User Voice, which gives you the opportunity to express your thoughts and concerns for us to review and take action on, within the actual app where you can go to the help button, you can submit feedback and contact our support team, or you can go to our Access Tech community page where we can even have an open dialogue about what's going on in our world and for you all to submit your questions that you do have in mind. And then finally, if you want to provide feedback on our help and support content, especially as we get into the new integration. So with that, we'll definitely have a lot more help and support docs. We'd love to see feedback on that as well. So all that being said, we appreciate your feedback. We want to hear more. This is so important to us because we really do listen and learn from and respond to your thoughts and suggestions. So please keep them coming. And of course, stay in touch. The MVP community first, and sorry for that caps mistake there, is a really great community that knows a lot of the inside scoop of what's going on with Access, and they're able to provide feedback on developments as we're building them before it even goes live and into any of your hands. And they already know even more about what's going on with our Power Platform integration. There's a lot more news that unfortunately I won't be able to share right now, but they are already able to provide so much awesome feedback on it, and I love that. So if you want to be one of those people, I'd highly recommend you to join the awesome MVP community, or you can continue to keep track of the information in our user groups or contact Luana for more information. Otherwise, you can become an Office Insider, and this is also something that we find super helpful and effective. If you're in the Insiders program, you will see features quicker than you would as a regular production user. And so features will get into your hands a couple of weeks earlier for you to then test and give us feedback on before we then roll out those features to customers across the board. So if you're not interested in MVP, Insiders is definitely a much more, not as strenuous in terms of task-based community. You don't have to necessarily do a lot of individual tasks yourself, besides just really helping us understand where the features are lying, how are they working in your system, and what we can do to improve them. And so with that, I will leave time for some questions.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Ebo. I have some questions for you off the bat.
Sure.
When it comes to integrating with Dataverse, it's really exciting that you create links with Dataverse, but will you be able to do, in addition to local tables in Dataverse, can we also in the same application have links tables to the local SQL Server on the network, for example?
So you're basically asking about a linked experience with SQL?
Yeah, so currently we can have access to backend, right, link tables, and also SQL Server backend link tables. But once you roll out that Dataverse connector, that will be just another mix that we can have into the Access application, or will that Access application be exclusively tied to Dataverse?
No, it's another mix. So you can still work with SQL if that's what you're asking, and correct me if I'm sure. But yes, no, it's not just limited to Dataverse. Yes, SQL is still an option that you can proceed on.
That's great, because then we can move data around between the local SQL Server and Dataverse and vice versa.
Yeah.
That'd be huge. Okay. Good. So we have some questions in the chat window here. I'm going to get to these questions first, and then we'll take any questions from the audience. The first one we got is from Klaus in Germany. Klaus wants to know if there's going to be any VBA integration with the new browser control.
So at this point in time, that's not a great question, by the way. At this point in time, that's something that we're still thinking about. Right now, transparently, VBA-related feature improvements are quite limited due to kind of just our investments in the VBA ecosystem. So with the new browser control, you will still be able to use kind of VBA regularly in the same way that you have done in the past, but we won't be kind of having those specific VBA feature-related improvements into that control, if that makes sense. So right now, that's not fully in scope, but we are still kind of contemplating how we can get that in as well.
Okay, thank you. And then Ben Zacharias wants to know if when you get the Monaco Editor, that's only going to be when you go into the SQL view for a query. You're still going to have the query interface, graphical user interface for building the query, correct?
That's correct. So yes, you are absolutely right. The graphical user interface, we are making improvements to separately. So that's not part of the Monaco initiative specifically, but that's something that we're including in what I mentioned in our round 2 query improvements. We are definitely working to have a stronger UI experience with our graphical interface as well. So that is something that we'll actually be working on hand in hand with the Monaco Editor.
Okay, great. Especially IntelliSense and Monaco Editor is going to be huge, where we can type the table name and then dot and then get a list of fields. That's going to make it really easy to build long SQL statements.
Yeah.
Now, that Monaco Editor, I believe that's the same one that's used the SQL Server Management Studio, correct?
Yeah.
Wonderful. All right, and PJ had not so much a question, but a statement regarding the Dataverse is a premium license. That's a big investment to get access link to Power Apps. We can use SharePoint lists and base M365. I don't see many SMEs buying in. Just so you know, PJ, if you have Microsoft Teams, if you have a 365, you get Teams. If you have Teams, you also get Dataverse, up to 2 gigabytes of Dataverse. So it used to be a premium, but now it's included as of late last year. So it's really nice to be able to build Power Apps for free in Teams, up to 2 gigabytes, which, as you know, is the same limit that Access has. So you can do a lot with 2 gigabytes. And I believe the compression in Dataverse is even better than the compression in Access, because 2 gigabytes in Access is not the same thing as 2 gigabytes in Dataverse. You can save a lot more records in Dataverse. So when it comes to Klaus was asking about the cost, it's actually free to use Dataverse if you create a Power Apps in Team. Now, if you want to create a Power Apps outside Teams, that's a $10 license. And you can, there's ways around that $10 license. Say, for example, you have a client that's got 100 users. You can have a single person get the license for Power Apps, and then they can share their app with the rest of the organization. I've done that with some of my clients without a problem. So there's no need to get a premium license for every user of Power Apps if they share the Power App. Ben wants to know if Dataverse is akin to SharePoint lists or more like SQL Server.
I mean, Dataverse is kind of its own entity. I wouldn't say that it's akin to either or. The difference with that and then SQL, I would say, is that it's more low to no code. So these are things that, a lot of business users can find a lot of advantage of, because you are not necessarily going in and querying like you would be in SQL. You're just kind of, navigating through a couple of button clicks, and then you have a really nice looking Power App in front of you. And then Dataverse specifically, when you're just looking at the data, it's another database management ecosystem where you're looking at the data in a little bit more of a kind of fleshed out way. You can see a little bit more detail than you would be able to see in Access, and I would also say SharePoint lists. So yeah, long story short, I would say it's its own kind of beast. I wouldn't necessarily correlate it to SharePoint or SQL. It's kind of its own entity there.
Yeah, and so I want to add that Dataverse is more like a platform, right?
Yeah.
When it was called CDS, it was a terrible name, the Common Data Service. Right away, you associate that with SQL Server or just under the SQL Service in Azure. But Dataverse is a lot more. For example, if you create a Power App and you're IBM and you get 100,000 employees around the globe, you don't have to worry about bringing down additional servers or expanding the resources in Dataverse. It's all managed for you, as opposed to doing all of that in Azure. Like if you're a startup and you want to have a very popular app in Azure, it used to be in the old days you had to start getting resource limiters and configuring all kinds of things in Azure just to get a global app in place. And now that's all managed for you. So it's really much more than a data service. PJ, again, he says, Dataverse is the main premiumized data store. My clients will stick with SQL Express. Yeah, I think SQL Expresses still have lots of legs. But I also see one thing I noticed with small customers is that they will call me and they say, well, I brought Office 365. What can I do with it, right? And I would wager a lot of people have the same question, right? They made an investment Office 365. They moved online. They put their emails online. And now they're like, okay, I'm paying this license. I see all these programs. What can I do with all this stuff? And so it's really an eye-opener when I show them all the different things they can use with Office 365 and Dataverse for free. And a lot of organizations are migrating to Teams. Before, they didn't have any inter-employee communication. It was just email or phone call. Now they're using Teams, for example. That's another reason why Office 365 is such a great value. And by the way, if you want to be an Office Insider, you get 5 licenses for Office 365 if you do have that. So you can use it on your cell phone, your tablet, your PC, your work PC, your home PC. That's 4 licenses. And if you have a virtual machine, you can install that 5th license there, and then that license joins the Office Insider program. So we can view Office Insider latest features. So it's a handy little trick there.
Yeah, and I would just quickly add back to Dataverse being a platform that it's the Power Platform central underlying storage unit. So if you're storing, let's just say that you decide to create a Power App separately, it would likely be stored in Dataverse, the actual data itself, for Power Apps as the front end. And same thing with kind of all their other front-end based tools in the Power Platform. So because of that, Dataverse is definitely a big space that we want to invest in a lot in, because if that's the core underlying storage unit, it will continue to grow. It will continue to have more seamless UI and UX experiences as well. And so we do feel excited that Dataverse specifically is a strong way to go.
All right, so Greg wants to know if, well, actually not Greg, somebody else wants to know if you have to have an internet connection in order to use Dataverse. Yes, unfortunately you do. And Greg from Cambodia wants to know about migrating SQL Server link tables to Dataverse. So that's interesting, because you mentioned, Ebo, you migrating access to Dataverse, but what if you could link SQL Server tables in your Access application, you want to move that to Dataverse through this new graphical interface, not graphical, but the Dataverse connector?
Well, that's tricky because you're technically moving data that's in SQL itself to Dataverse, not necessarily in Access if it's a link table, right? Because it's not actually hosted in Access. So yeah, that might be a little bit tricky. We can think through what that experience would look like, but for now, you would likely have to go to SQL to make that move to Dataverse, because again, what you're seeing in Access is just what we call like a shadow or ghost table. And you can still make changes in that table, but when it comes to actually migrating the data itself, you'll need to migrate it from where it's actually hosted.
Yeah, and I would imagine the SQL Server Migration Assistant guys, SSMA,
Yeah.
maybe coming out with a version that will allow you to migrate your SQL Server tables to Dataverse. All right, so Alphonse wants to know, does Dataverse support table relationships?
Yeah. So like, as I mentioned, we'll once we have access relationships, right, and you want to export those relationships, we'll export them for you, and they'll still appear as relationships in Dataverse. So long story short, yes. You can either create new ones once you're there, or if you already have relationships in Access, we'll migrate all of those for you, and those relationships will be preserved.
Okay. James Spellman wants to know, is there any possibility of increasing the number of table/file handlers to allow for more than 2,048 objects/connections to avoid the dreaded too many databases open errors corruptions?
Great question. That's something we're looking into. I would say that gets a little bit tricky just given the nature of our engine itself and what it can handle. I am still thinking through the team, how we can expand that, especially given that once we're linking and moving tables to other products that can hold more objects, how can we ensure that Access meets that? So great question. Long story short, right now there's not a specific plan, but longer term, we want to look into improving that.
Okay, so Ben wants to know, again, Ben, these are some great questions. Thank you so much. He wants to know, when will we have Power Query integration with Access?
Yeah, we get those questions a lot. Still a thought. We definitely want to work on that for sure. Right now, we're focused on, again, the Dataverse Power Platform ecosystem, but Power Query will follow shortly thereafter, and I'm already starting to get a lot of notes taken on how we can do that and when. So stay tuned for that. That's still top of mind.
Okay, so now David has a really interesting question. Will Access integration with Dataverse support offline mode similar to Power Apps does?
Support offline mode, meaning that when you're specifically offline, you can still work on the data in Access or in Dataverse?
I think in Access is what he meant.
Well, yeah, don't have a great answer for you on that right now. I don't know if that's something that we would be able to support, but yeah, we can think about that, and I'm going to take note on that right now.
Okay. All right. Ron wants to know, Ron is R-O-N, could you query Dataverse using ADO?
I'm not sure. That's something the Dataverse team would have a better answer to. I don't remember if they invested in using ADO within the Dataverse ecosystem. So again, I can take note on that and let you know, Juan, and then Juan, you can feel free to relay that info. But yeah, I'm not sure if they've invested in ADO integration or not.
As you guys know, if you want to use ADO and VBA to query SQL Server, you need to install the MSOLADB, and the latest version is 18. So I would imagine if they come up with a driver for Dataverse for ADO, then yeah, you would be able to do the same thing with ADO, I would think. But because Ebo and his team is allowing you to link Dataverse tables to the front end, you can then use DAO and you add query in your code to a query from your code with DAO. All right, Michael Christopher wants to know, does the ability to address 4 gigabyte memory mean that the DB size will grow from 2 gigabytes to 4 gigabytes?
So that's a good question. Right now, like it's not exactly how that works. We're still trying to configure how we can make this more clear for you. But the size of the database itself doesn't mean that we're going to have 4 gigabytes now in Access moving forward. Again, that's something that we want to do, but you will be able to address that much memory through something that's called LAA, which you can navigate through differently. So I'll have better documentation on that. Right now, I know that's not super clear, and thank you for asking that. But yeah, like the general Access database is not necessarily just increasing for everything. But LAA is something that a little bit different that I'll give more clarity on at a later time.
Now, to be clear, if you're running into memory issues, guys, you want to use the 64-bit of Office, and that will allow you to use all the memory on the PC. All right, let's see here. There is someone here who wants to know, does the breaking up of ACE mean? Do we need to rewrite connectivity code? All right, so basically what ACE is, that particular situation that Ebo was referring to is when you use SQL Server Migration Assistant for Access in the past, right, and you didn't have an Access, and you had Access installed, you thought maybe you can just use that access with SQL Server Migration Assistant to upload data at SQL Server. Well, it was walled-in garden, and so you had to install the ACE distributor. That's the only use case I can think of, which is you would use ACE. Now you don't need to install ACE. You can just use SQL Server Migration Assistant if you have the Office 365 with Access installed. Ebo, am I wrong on that?
Nope, that's not correct.
Okay. Has there ever been a discussion of a complete whiteboard rewrite of Access? Oh, this is a good one. This is from James Spellman. James Spellman wants to know, has there ever been a discussion of a complete whiteboard rewrite of Access to completely eliminate workarounds, bugs that exist but can't easily be fixed because it would break many existing applications? I think I know the answer to that, but Ebo
yeah, I
go ahead and take that.
That's tough. I mean, obviously, we want to have the product have an experience that eliminates all bugs that are encountered, but it's really hard to know what's encountered unless it's fully developed, and we have as many use cases as possible to test them. So what I would say is we're not kind of, having complete revamp of Access, but what we're doing more of is we're running more tests to ensure that most of the use cases can, target those bugs that we would anticipate and then make those fixes before it gets rolled out. That being said, nothing is perfect, and I wish it was, but there will still naturally be times where bugs are encountered through use cases that may not have been originally anticipated for, or in areas that were not kind of, expected. So we're doing a better job, though. We are spending way more time looking at tests, going through what's in our ecosystem, really diving deep into our code to make sure that everything is crisp and clear and clean before they actually get shipped out. I think we are kind of, I would say, quote unquote, slowing down that process in the sense that we're looking more into detail before things get pushed too fast.
Okay. So Leslie wants to know, if Dataverse supports relationships, does this mean it will also support referential integrity and cascade update / delete?
That's something I'll have to get back to you on. I'm not sure if they fully support that right now.
Okay. All right. And David says it does, but he may have a little bit more knowledge about Dataverse here. All right, so from KL, any special integration between SQL Server and Dataverse, or would you need to use the linked server object to query Dataverse tables from within SQL Server? I think from Access you're working on it. I don't think you can answer for SQL Server, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, I just know that from my experience, you can do that, or I believe that there's a Power Query experience that you can use between SQL and Dataverse. Not fully sure, though. And Juan, if you know better, feel free to chime in.
Yeah, I'm not sure that you can link Dataverse to SQL Server at this time, but I'm not a SQL Server expert. All right, Greg from Cambodia. Greg's got another great question. Would Access ever come with a built-in integration to SQL Server?
With a built-in integration? What do we mean by that?
Yeah, no drivers needed, like having a connection object in Access.
That's a great question. That's ideal, but right now that's not to give a long answer short, that's not specifically something that we have in our roadmap just right now, but it's something that we can definitely consider.
Okay. All right. Ken wants to know, he says, this is a statement, 64-bit access seems to have a lot of bugs. Is there a focus on resolving the issues in 64-bit access?
Was that a question? Sorry.
Yes, he wants to, the statement, he makes a statement, then he wants to know, his statement is, he believes 64-bit access has, seems to have a lot of bugs. Is there a focus on resolving them?
Oh, so just basically, are we focused on resolving bugs in 64-bit access? Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
to give a long story short, yes, absolutely. We're focused on resolving bugs in any version of Access, 64 or 32. So yes, we, again, want to do a better job of product maintenance. And as you're discovering more bugs in 64-bit version, that's great for us to know. Definitely get that feedback submitted in the product, though. So when we actually look at that specific feedback, we're able to take immediate action on it. So anytime, just in general, for any of you on the call, you discover a bug, the best place to do that is submitting that feedback into the product tool, because that then goes into our own internal system, and then we can act on them really quickly instead of kind of tracking a separate model that we have that just kind of lists crashes and app hangs more generally without too much detail or insight. So yes, please get feedback on them. Yes, we will definitely try to improve that experience in 64-bit, to give a long story short.
Okay, good. All right, so Lori has a really long statement. I'm going to summarize this, Lori. Basically, what she's saying now with most people working remotely, they are, you have an Access application. The only way to make that work or VPN, or example like that, is to move it to a SQL Server or move it to the cloud. And will Dataverse help with this situation in any way, or is it mostly for low-end mobile apps such as you demonstrate? I'd like to take this question first, Ebo, and then maybe you can chime in. But
Sure.
Dataverse, I'll give you a great example. I had a customer who approached us who wanted to, he's got a business where he goes into gas stations and does inventory. And he calls me up and says, "Juan, I got these employees and they go to gas stations and these gas stations, they say, okay, you need 3 boxes of Snickers, 4 boxes of M&M, and they do the grocery side of the gas station. And so they fill out this long form, and then they turned it in, and it's all paperwork, and I want to move away from that. He's not a big guy. He's not a multi-million-dollar corporation. He's got a few gas stations in his neck of the woods. He's got several employees that work him. So one of the things that we discussed was creating a Power App that runs on a cell phone or a tablet, plug into Dataverse, right? So the guys go out to each work gas station, they take their inventory using the Power App. Then the owner back in the office uses Access to tap into those Dataverse tables to then send a EDI transaction to Pepsi, right, for the Coke and the other products at the, I mean, not Pepsi, to Pepsi products to Pepsi, right, and another EDI transaction to Coke for their Coke products, or where to deliver each gas station. So Access allows you to do those EDI transactions through third-party APIs. But that's a great example how Dataverse allows you to create these low-code apps that can only do so much, right? Because it's not like Access. Access is much more powerful, but it opens up all kinds of opportunities. So instead of these guys having, for example, the Microsoft Surface book, or Surface tablet, which is very expensive, you can get them a very cheap, inexpensive iOS or Android tablet, have them run your Power App, and then use Access to process the information back at the office. So that's a great example of how you can integrate Dataverse with Access. What do you think, Ebo?
I think that's, you said it actually quite well. I don't think there was too much more that I can add there, but yeah, there's definitely ways to have a stronger integration. And I think Juan points out quite a number of them. And as we get our content and documents written out, you'll also see a lot more examples going forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's just amazing how many times I get calls from people who have never seen a professionally done Access application. They're just blown away by the capabilities. So Access is a rapid development environment,
Absolutely.
development product where you can And it's just going to get better with this Dataverse integration. And when the graph solution comes out, that's going to be pretty exciting for my corporate customers.
Absolutely.
It just shows there's a real commitment. And, I get this question pretty much once every quarter. I heard that Access is going away. Well, if you heard that and you listened to tonight's presentation, it's pretty obvious that Microsoft is committed to Access. So we really appreciate that.
Absolutely. And hey, Juan, I do have to jump in a few minutes, but I am happy to take a couple more questions before dropping off.
All right. So Lori wants to expand upon her questions. My question is, how can we accommodate remote users who need to use complex access databases but not in the office? So Lori, again, if they require VPN, you got to have the access, the backend in SQL Server back in the office. It does not work over VPN. The only other thing would be to use a remote program such as go to my PC and log into the PC remotely that way. But there is no way to do a pure access solution without using a remote program. You have to use either SQL Server or the cloud.
Yeah, I would second that.
All right. So I'm going to open up here. We only have a few more minutes left. After Ebo leaves, I do have a few announcements to make and some really neat things I want to share with you guys. So don't leave yet. But Greg has another question here. Why I don't seem to have the 2048 connection issue since I moved to use SQL Server as the backend. All right. So Greg has some feedback for those of you who are asking about the 2048 connection issue. All right, I want to open it up here. Anybody who wants to actually say something over the microphone here to Ebo before he goes?
So when you do have Dataverse available to access, how can I get like training or what resources are there for training on learning how to do that?
Yeah, great question. So when we finally release this feature, we will be releasing a number of documents that just talks about, okay, now that we have this available, here are the steps that you can take to export your data into Dataverse. In terms of getting training now about Dataverse by itself, though, in Power Apps, there's a lot of existing websites. If you actually just if you type in Microsoft Dataverse, you'll see a number of Microsoft-produced links that talk about the Dataverse ecosystem, and they also link to some trainings as well. Another thing that you can do now is you can get a free trial environment for 30 days. If you go onto the Power Apps or Power Platform website, you can see how you can then create what was previously known as Common Data Service, but now it should be called Dataverse. You should be able to create a trial environment for 30 days for you to test it as well. And in concordance with that, you can also, leverage a lot of the existing websites that talk about it. But in terms of the export experience, we'll be definitely producing a lot of that in a few months once the feature is finally out.
Thank you.
Of course.
All right, Ebo, so thank you so much again. It's been a really great treat to have you tonight. I know you're a busy man with all these great features, and so we're hoping that you can join us again next year around this time or in March. Book us for your March calendar there, and looking forward to seeing you speak at the April event in Europe coming up. For I believe it's going to be 2 days that Carl's going to be putting on, and then I'm going to see if I can invite Carl next month. But I believe you're speaking at the Europe conference, correct?
Yeah, I am. I'll be there.
All right.
Virtually, of course.
So good. And so thank you for the announcements today. You made some headlines that we're going to be tweeting about tomorrow morning. And LinkedIn as well. So appreciate that. Thank you for the exclusives there.
Sure.
And, all right. And Lori, if you reach out to me at jsoto22 on Twitter or on LinkedIn at LinkedIn/n/1soto, I can send you some great videos on YouTube on Dataverse that expands upon it. But don't go away, everyone. I'm going to be sharing my screen. Ebo, you're welcome to stick around a little bit more. But if not, then thank you again.
Thank you so much, everyone. It was awesome meeting you all virtually.
All right.
Cheers.
So I want to, thank you very much. So I want to just share my screen here and just take a few minutes to go over some really nice tools that have come on board here with Access. And let me just minimize all this stuff. The first one I want to show you is the new Power Automate Desktop. I'm really excited about this, guys. It's just going to allow you to basically create macros in Windows, and it's a Windows scripting language that's native to Microsoft, and they were charging $10 a month for this, and now it's free and you can download it. So eventually, it's going to come with the Windows and then a future Windows update, but you can be able to download this now and start playing with it. And I'm going to copy this link into the comments bar here. So let me just paste that real quick so you can refer to that. You get a chance. But please look into it. It's all you. It actually, even like if you ever use the Excel macro recorder, we'll even let you do that. And it's a really powerful tool set. I mean, it's when I first opened it up, it was a little overwhelming, but I'm looking forward to helping me with my programming in Access because there's some repetitive tasks I do over and over again. So I'm looking forward to doing that. The next one I want to share with you guys is, let me just get rid of this toolbar here at the top. Give me a second here. So let me just, let's see here. Oh, you know how when you may be using TeamViewer, you might be using, when you call technical support in Microsoft, they would send you to like an app or in a website where they give you a 6-digit number. Well, that has been now included with Access, and it's called Quick Assist. And it's very professional. It looks great. I mean, not Office, so that Microsoft Windows. So what happens here is you go to Quick Assist, you type Quick Assist, and if you have a client the other line, you give them a 6-digit number, they approve it, and bam, you're in there. You can annotate the screen or you can take over control. Really good, because we were using TeamViewer at my company, and then we were using AnyDesk and other tools. Now we don't have to do any of that. We can just use Quick Assist that comes with Microsoft, and it's great helping my grandma when she has issues. So please look into that. I'm going to put the link into the comments there as well. And I've got 2 more topics here. I got to do a shout out to George Hepworth. He is starting a new group. Yes.
Oh, sorry. Is that Quick Assist? Would that take the place of something like GoToMeeting, like you can control the other person's computer?
Yes, but there has to be another person on the other line. So we know go to my PC is unattended. So this is not unattended.
Right, but I use GoToMeeting right now, which always also has to be attended.
Yeah, I would encourage you to Quick Assist, but the only drawback, because it doesn't record the session. Sometimes you have to record something. I don't know if GoToMeeting allows you to record it like I do right now with WebEx, but take a look at that. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised.
And can you like share files or anything, or it's just remote?
Yes, you can share. You can share files, I believe, and there's a chat box where you can put links to URLs. Really wonderful tool to provide support. So take a look at that and play around with it. So George, are you here still with us tonight, George? I know you were here earlier. George might be a little shy. All right, there you are. Okay, George, tell us about this group that you're starting. Great.
Well, actually, let me just do a real quick overview. Now, Juan and I have been talking about this group for quite a while, and I kind of put him off because I was enjoying being retired and not particularly eager to invest that much time. But then I realized that it's time for me to get back involved. There's still things that I can learn, so I'm looking forward to this group actually as a way for me to share information with people out here on the Pacific Coast, but also for me to re-engage with the community. So when he asked me this last time, I said, sure, why not? And so we're going to start.
That's great, George. I know if you live on the West Coast, Seattle, California, this is the group for you. So we're going to be there April 1st to support you, my friend. Thank you so much for giving back.
Oh yeah, my pleasure. Now, I don't know if there's anything else we want to say at this point other than the first meeting, Juan, I think will introduce me to the group, I guess, and we'll go from there. I'm really looking forward to feedback from people on what they want to see for presentations. I have a lot of things in my mind that I want to see, but I'm kind of like I said, I've been a little bit out of touch because of retirement. So I'm also looking, forward to hearing from other people what their primary interests are, that we can line up presenters. I will say
Yeah,
that yes, go ahead.
no, I was going to say you were former MVP. You're also a book author and a co-author and a couple of books. So we're really excited to have you.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I had, I was really excited tonight to hear Ebo talking about integration with Power Apps and the Power Platform and moving back into that. Juan is kind enough not to mention the topic of the last two books I worked on, which were Access Web Databases and Access Web Apps, both of which folded quite quickly after our books came out. So
Yeah.
I'm happy to see that they're coming back again.
Very good. Well, George, we're going to wish you the best of luck. We'll be there to support you, my friend. The last thing I want to go over is just a reminder about the great SQL converter that we have where you can convert your Access queries to T-SQL. So please don't miss out on that. We'd love to hear your feedback. You can provide feedback with the chat option here. Leave feedback right here. Please give that a try. If you haven't heard it, it allows you to convert your Access queries. And most importantly, you can click on the VBA tab either in Access or in C-SQL, and it'll just prepare the whole statement for you and plug it right into your code. So please don't forget to use this tool and leave us some feedback. That's it for us tonight, folks. It's been great to having you. We really appreciate everyone who showed up tonight and participated. Stick around for next month. We always meet on the second Tuesday of the month. Thank you so much. This is Juan signing out from the Caribbean. I'll be back in my Chicago office next month. Talk to you then. So long, everyone.
Thank you, Juan.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And this